Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Grafton Select Board meeting for September 28th, 2021. I'd like to open the meeting at 7 p.m. First order of business tonight, let's just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next up, is there anybody from the public that would wish to speak? So public comments in this part of our agenda is both open for in-person and remote participants. For those remote participants, if you'd like to raise your hand, I can admit you into the room. Okay. Mr. Pomeroy, you are a panelist in the meeting. Did you have a public comment that you would like to make, or because you're on our agenda for later on?
No, sir.
Okay.
Test run.
That was a test run. It was good. Okay. All right. So first up, we have is our fire chief search and interview. Tonight we have joining us Robert Pomeroy from Badge Quest and Dylan Cogswell from Badge Quest. Good evening. Is both Robert and Dylan on?
Yes, both here.
Hi. Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for making it out tonight. So wanted to put this on the agenda to discuss just the status of where we are and the next steps for when final candidates come in and what our process is going to look like. So I wanted to know if you wanted to let Badge Quest maybe walk us through that first, or does anyone have any direct questions that they would like to ask before they go into their discussion with us?
No, let's hear them.
Okay. I was going to give the floor to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. My name's Robert Pomeroy. I'm here from Badge Quest. We're a public safety consulting company that operates throughout New England. We do everything from entry-level police and fire exams to promotional processes for all ranks. We also do police and fire chief recruitments. So we were retained by the town to conduct a search, a recruitment for a fire chief in Grafton. We worked with the town administrator and the committee. We came up with a final draft of an ad, which we advertised nationally and locally. We received a total of 24 applications. The committee selected 11 of those candidates to move forward to what we call step 2. Prior to this, we did a job analysis of the position. We interviewed the town administrator, and we also did a questionnaire for the fire members, and we determined what the knowledge, skills, abilities, and personal characteristics were that were required of the position. Then we advertised. As I said, we received 24 applications. The committee reviewed all of those applications, those resumes, and we selected 11 for step 2. Step 2 is a process where each of the candidates that was selected was sent a town of Grafton job application to complete, as well as a series of narrative questions, a few pages of narrative questions, asking everything about from leadership style to why they thought they were a fit for Grafton and so forth. We received those. However, 2 people did withdraw at that point, which is customary. Usually when candidates are selected for step 2, we lose an average of 13 to 15% of the candidates. So that left us with 9. The committee interviewed all 9 candidates, and the goal was to select 5 to participate in an assessment center, which is an all-day assessment center, which will be held this Friday. So we had 5 candidates selected. 1 withdrew today. That's not uncommon. The person obtained a position elsewhere. So the assessment center that will be held on Friday, all of the candidates will be arriving at 7:30 in the morning. I have a team of 3 fire subject matter experts, plus myself and Mr. Cogswell will be there. And we go through a series of exercises all day long, and it will take about 8 hours to wrap up that assessment center, at the end of which we will provide the town with a report on how each candidate performed in each of the exercises, and along with narrative comments about their strengths and weaknesses. From there, the goal would be to reduce the pool further and provide that information to the town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeroy. Does anyone have any questions? Cole?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So 4 candidates are taking the assessment and you want to potentially reduce the pool further to 3 or 2, or is that to be determined as the assessment is completed?
That would be determined based on the results of the assessment center.
Just a follow-up question to that, Mr. Pomeroy. So that mean that out of the 4 that are left, you could have potentially 4 candidates for us?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Time frame on all of this? When, I think, let me just expand a little bit. When will we be able to interview these 4 candidates?
Well, the assessment center will be Friday, and I will have a report completed and to the town administrator by Monday. And then he can work with you as far as the next step in the process, which would be interviews.
That's great. Great.
I'm sorry, Dormy.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Pomeroy. Thank you for the update for the whole board. We had discussions, I'm on the committee, you may not recognize me with my mask on, and it was brought up in conversation, it was brought up to this board about residential requirements. And so we've had some discussions around that, and I just wanted to know what your opinion was, what other communities usually go by in terms of how far out a fire chief should live from a community. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you could kind of give us your professional opinion on that so the board can make a decision in our final interviews.
You know, we did discuss that prior to placing the advertisement. And some communities, as you know, have a residential requirement that the successful candidate has to live in the community. That obviously will limit your pool. Some communities have a strict number of miles, 10, 15, 20 miles. I prefer not to put that in a job advertisement. And the reason is, let's say arbitrarily you had 15 miles and you had the perfect candidate that lived 16 miles away. Will that be a disqualifier or a deal breaker for the community? So I think that's something that you need to determine. So what we did is when we posted the ad, and I'll quote the language, it says, the successful candidate is required to reside within a reasonable distance as determined by the appointing authority within 12 months from the date of hire. So I think the best course of action would be to let us do the assessment center. Let's provide the results to you. And when you have those further interviews with the candidates, I think you could make a determination what you think is reasonable at that time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Not for him. I don't have any for him.
Mr. Pomeroy, so with our process of interviewing the finalists, most of us know, like I said, we've hired, choosing TAs is typically what this board has done. This is the first time that the board will be interviewing a chief of fire department. Do you offer any type of consultation in the types of questions or framing, allow us to frame questions in a way that we could work off of, that we would want to ask these candidates?
Yeah, so when we get to that point, I've already talked to the town administrator. I told them we would provide some sample questions, although I'm sure each of you would have your own individualized questions as well.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Pomeroy or
I
Mr.
just,
Cogswell?
not for him. I just think that if we're gonna have candidates, possibly 4 candidates on Monday, we need to schedule interviews
I agree.
right away.
Yep.
So if it's next week or whenever, we need to schedule these interviews right away.
We're meeting next week, right?
Yeah, is everybody free on Thursday? Does that work for people?
It's not for me, no.
Okay.
I would recommend to the board, I work with the TA and determine what a reasonable schedule is, because there will be some logistics that we would have to assure based on your final report coming back from Badge Quest.
I have a question. Will the search committee need to review that final report prior to our interviews, or is it kind of, we
Nope.
can just go?
Yep, you can just go.
All right.
Well, the other, if I can, just add one thing. We have to give the candidates that will be interviewed a little bit of lead time. Some of them may or may not have let their current employers know that they're a candidate for the position here. And obviously, when they're going to be interviewed by your board, it will become a public record. So sometimes, we need to give that courtesy of them to talk to their current employers.
So is there any,
Usually a week is sufficient.
yeah, I'm just wondering if the board has any desire for the week of the 11th.
Yep.
So I know we have a goals workshop set for the 12th. We have a logistics meeting set up for the 13th. Could the board possibly meet the 14th?
So let me ask this. The, these interviews can get quite extensive. And I get concerned that if there's 4 people, that when you get to the 4th person, you might be tired of asking questions. And you might be, because this could go on for a couple hours. I would say that we pick 2 days, either Monday and Thursday, to do 2 and 2. And then, you're constantly sharp on what your thoughts are, what your questions are. It's like interviewing 10 people. By the time you get to the 8th person, you're going, I hope you're qualified. But, I would suggest that we do it in 2 days.
We don't,
And whatever else the board thinks. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah.
we don't know the number of candidates yet. It might only be 2. And I know when we interviewed the town administrators, we had more than 3, I think. 3 or
You had 3.
We had
Okay,
3
3.
interviews. Yeah.
And we did them all in one night and with an hour each. And I know I liked having it in one night because I got a sense for everybody, and I had that same feeling all night rather than, what if I'm having a bad day the next day and it's not anybody else's fault. But
So can we schedule it for, and I'm just throwing this out, Monday and Thursday, and if we only have 2, or we have 3, and everybody's fine with that, then we just do Monday, we cancel Thursday.
Monday is Indigenous People Day, so I don't think we can schedule anything that day.
Oh,
Town hall's closed.
So,
Yeah, so we, in my estimation, just due because of that week and giving ample amount of time, as Mr. Pomeroy had suggested, my recommendation would be to schedule for the 14th. And if we have to go for additional time, then my recommendation would be looking at like a Saturday morning meeting.
do we have anything on the workshop meeting that is so pressing we can't push that off a little bit and make the interviews that night?
We could move the goals meeting till later in the
Yeah.
month.
I would support that.
do it on the 12th?
This is really
Yeah.
important.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we need to schedule this and
Sounds
maybe,
great.
yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Pomeroy, we're going to look at possibly the 12th and the 14th as the 2 days for final interviews, and based on the amount of candidates we receive, if the board, with the board's permission, if there's only 2 candidates, are you okay with keeping the 14th for the interviews and then keeping our workshop schedule the same?
Peter, keep in mind, I only brought that up because I don't have a problem interviewing 4 people. But again, depending on how long it goes on, sometimes it can get
Yeah.
dragging and stuff like that. That's the only reason I brought it
We
up.
just have an extra day, just in
Yeah.
case. And that's what the committee did too. We did
Yep.
the same thing. We added the extra day and we ended up using it. Now granted, we had more candidates, but it
Yeah.
was helpful to schedule more than one day. I'm going to suggest we move the goals meeting to another week. I feel like concentrating on the fire chief interviews and concentrating on the board's goals would be, and then leading up to town meeting the following week is sort of a lot. I'd like to, personally would like to concentrate on less things at a time if possible, and the fire chief takes precedence to our goals meeting.
And it would be very nice to introduce the new fire chief at the town meeting.
Sure.
Just throwing it out there.
I don't know if that can
pending
happen.
successful
No. Okay.
negotiations.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm saying it would be nice.
All right, so let's do that. So we'll move the goals workshop off to some other date later in the month, or look at November, but we're gonna have reserve the 12th and the 14th as our two primary days, and based upon whatever number of candidates come back, we'll schedule them accordingly, and let those candidates know that's more than a week's notice, Mr. Pomeroy, I think, and that would be adequate. And I think the board is amenable to that. So we'll look at either the 12th and the 14th, 7 p.m. Still good with everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Or
I just want to ask Evan if you think it works for the timeline as far as getting data back, getting it to us, and
Yeah,
Okay,
I
great.
do.
Okay.
I do. And I think it gives the candidates enough time to notify their employers of, just like I had to do in February.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it takes a week for you to work that up and make sure you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Would the board consider meeting at 6 instead of 7?
that's what I was going to
Mhm.
suggest.
I
I
like
like
that
that
idea.
idea.
It's fine with me.
And then
Yeah.
it gives us more time to deliberate after the fact, and give everybody an hour.
I'll meet at 5.
Are we doing in-person interviews or Zoom interviews?
Oh, boy.
I would
no,
prefer in-person
I would
interviews.
prefer in person,
I would too, but I don't know
definitely.
if that's.
I think that's the board's discretion.
I'd prefer in-person interviews over a Zoom.
I would too, all day long.
Yep.
Also, if we've got 3, I do have kind of a preference to interview them all on the same night.
Mhm.
I would suggest if we've got 3, then we do them all on the Monday. And then if we kick over to 4, then we could consider Thursday.
I like
Sure.
that.
So just to correct you, it'll be Tuesday, the 12th, not Monday.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Tuesday.
Don't
Yep.
let anyone get confused. There's a third day.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. All right. Does anyone have any objections if we go at 6 o'clock, that if there's 3, we could potentially do it all in one day?
No
No
problem.
problem with that. Okay. I think we've got that all cleared up. Work with the TA to make sure that the board's got all the materials ahead of time with Mr. Pomeroy and Mr. Cogswell. And I believe you guys will be attending those interviews as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have a quick question. The list of questions that we submitted to you, does that kind of get married into the badge quest ones?
Yeah,
that
I'll
they're
work.
gonna-
I'll work. Bob will send me some samples for final questions. Just like I did with the search committee, I take questions that you all send me and kind of intersperse them and try to, like 3 of you I think sent me questions this week. Everyone sent me 2 or 3 questions, so that should be 6, but there's really only 3 because you're all asking the same questions in a different way. So I'll try to boil those down too to get a succinct question.
Okay.
But
That's another point I want to ask. Are we in agreement that we want to ask the same question of all the candidates?
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, if we're going to choose which questions are going to be asked, then you have to ask the same question for all 3 candidates.
Oh, yeah, but we're not limited to those questions.
You have to ask the same, that's what I'm trying to get at, Ray. Are we
No,
going
no,
to
no.
ask the same questions for all 3 candidates? That's
Yes.
what I'm trying to.
But I think what Ray's saying is if it heads in a direction, like, you can explore that question.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, if there's a discussion about
Yeah.
the root of the question, yeah. I just want to make sure you're not going to ask like another question that's not asked of the other candidates and we.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay. Figure we just get that out of the way now.
Yep.
So when will we be getting the resumes and the information and
as soon as Mr. Pomeroy finishes the report.
so on Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on the board?
Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't
Good
think we have
night.
any more
Thank you.
questions, but thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Pomeroy, Mr. Cogswell. Have a great evening. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
We look
Thank
forward to
you.
this. Thank you.
Thanks, gents.
Bye.
All right.
Good.
So next up here, there's a couple of comments from the last meeting. The select board wanted to consider whether or not it wanted to add 3 warrant articles to town meeting warrant. The first one is Community Preservation Committee membership charge. The second one was the TIF agreement with UPS, and the third was the town clerk appointment versus election. So we'll start with the first one here and just go over the first one here, Community Preservation Committee membership charge. Colleen, did you want to?
Yeah, so this is just the language now that we have presented in front of us. It was basically what we talked about last week, where it by law we have to have certain representatives from certain committees. We're not suggesting to change that at all. That all stays the same. What this is going to ask of town meeting is whether or not we want to change from a 4-member at-large makeup to a little more prescriptive and have it be 2 members at large and a representative from the Veterans Affairs Committee and a representative from the Select Board. So that language can still be changed tonight. I don't know if everybody's in agreement of the Select Board. It seemed like there was strong agreement with the Veterans Affairs Committee, so maybe just change that and have a 3 at-large makeup or Select Board as designated by the board as it's written here. So that's the conversation to be had tonight about that.
Does anyone want to comment first? Doreen?
Yeah, so I have a couple follow-up questions to that. So, as you may remember last week, I said I thought that it was a good idea. I feel like that having veterans have a voice on a committee is a good idea. However, in looking into CPC's charge, it seems that the war memorials is what the funding would be for, right? And that goes through the Soldier and Memorial Committee, not the Veterans Committee.
So I think this committee could also be doing memorials and other projects alike. It doesn't necessarily have to be a memorial. It could be just a veterans park. You know what I mean? And
Right.
any kind of thing that kind of would fall under the CPA funding.
So the second thing is I asked the question today of whether or not CPA funding can be used for parks. Did we get an answer to that?
Yes, the question was answered to me about signage for parks, like
Yes.
memorial parks. And,
Yes.
and you would be able to
You
use
can.
it. Yes.
Okay, great. So my third question is, has anyone talked to CPC about this?
Well, no, but I'm curious why you would ask that.
Because, so, in my opinion, if, CPC does, obviously, like, a lot, there's a lot that goes into, CPC's work and CPA funds, right? And so as I started looking into it, I had more questions about, are we changing this charge correctly, or should we get input from CPC? And if I was sitting on another committee, I would want someone to question me. And so I reached out to CPC. No one's gotten back to me. And so then I thought, well, does this need to be changed at October town meeting? And if we're not doing appointments until next June, can we give ourselves the time to do this correctly? And I'm not saying it's incorrect. I'm just saying.
Sounds like you are.
And what I'm saying is I'm not confident it's correct, okay? Which is different. And so I don't feel comfortable voting in favor of putting this on a warrant without talking to anybody on CPC about it and making sure that this is the road we should be going down. And if we're doing appointments in June, we can certainly put this on in May. So I'm excited that you brought this up because I think it is something we should look at, and I'm all in favor of having veterans on committees. I'm not comfortable
With the
with
process.
the process yet. And if we can wait until May, I think we should do it in May. That's my opinion. I'm not comfortable putting it on in October. Even though I like the idea. I feel like I just have a slice of information. I've gotten no feedback from anyone on CPC.
So I guess I'm just confused because I think we were informed by the town administrator this is the proper process to change this, so we know we're doing the right process. You reached out to the committee, you received no response, which to me means they're not that interested. So this is the right process. You reached out, and I guess I understand your hesitancy, but I also don't at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. So I don't assume that because I didn't hear from the chair that they're not interested. And, we've been down this road before, and I just want to make sure eyes are,
Yeah.
eyes
At the end of the day,
are
they
crossed, so-
they kind of fall under the select board, so we make the appointments and we're kind of in charge of how this language goes.
Absolutely. And
So you just want 100% support from them before doing it.
yes.
And if they weren't to support it, how would you feel?
If they weren't to support it, I'd want to know why, and I'd want to know what we could change. I'd want to come to a compromise and say, what's the reasoning? If it's because people are sitting on a board and they like the position, then the board has the right to change the charge. If it's because, oh, it shouldn't be this committee, it should be this committee, or I don't know. I don't know their reasons because I haven't spoken to anybody. But it's, and the other thing is, October town meeting has a lot less turnout than May. And I feel typically things like this go on May town meeting. And that doesn't mean it can't. I'm just saying, like, if we're not in a rush, if we're not doing anything with this until June of 2022, it can go on the May warrant. And then we have the time to talk about it, figure out, and, you know, I appreciate the fact that you've clearly done the work, you know, and I don't feel confident, I don't feel caught up that I have the information I need to move forward on this tonight. And that's just where I'm at.
Does any of the other board members have any questions or comments on whether or not it wants to sponsor this warrant article? I believe it's article number 23.
I just have a question. So that the putting on the veterans and putting on a select board member, does that take away 2 at-large positions? Is that what that does? Okay. Okay.
Any other questions on the board?
Well, so, Colleen, I'm just wondering if you feel a sense of urgency on this.
It's not a sense of urgency, but rather than us spending the time until May to dot our i's and cross our t's, it would allow CPC to get their house in order, knowing that a change is coming. It gives them several months because it wouldn't take effect immediately. People would finish out their terms, so it provides that committee more time to prepare rather than us taking that time from them and then kind of saddling it with them with a couple weeks to transition. I kind of liked that approach better, but if we want to wait till May and have them pivot really quickly if it passes, I mean, that's another way to do it too. I don't know if I would love that if I was on that committee, but I mean, it's another way to do it.
Questions?
Make a motion.
Oh, we just have to talk about this a little bit more before we get there. My question, first of all, I support the idea of more inclusion, especially from our veterans in Grafton. So I think, you know, to me, that's appropriate. If we want to put a select board member on there, we could always appoint one of them at member large positions. But I get that we may not have an at-large position always available every year if we reduce this down, or we may, I guess, if there's 3. But I mean, I'm in favor of asking the town if it wants to do this, right? So if the town says yes, then I think that's the proper prescribed way of doing this. If the town says no, then, you know, I think, you know, we had that same issue with the CIPC bylaw, right? So we went back, it got redrafted, it kind of went through another evolution, and it became a better presentation, a better bylaw, and the town then finally accepted it. So, you know, I think, you know, that we have 2 town meetings a year. We have done bylaws in October. We have actually done charter amendments in, you know, at the October town meeting. So I personally feel that whether we do it now or later, now is just as good as time as if we decide to do it in May, if there is no sense of urgency from the board. So personally, I'm in support of this, but I'm really not in support of the select board representative, because I believe we can do that ourselves because we appoint the members at large, right? That's our charge. So going from 4 down to 3 members at large, and then, you know, taking one of those at large members and making it part of the Veterans Affairs Committee to designate, I would like to see the town what it wants to do with this. So I'm in favor of it. Is there any other questions from the board?
Just one comment. I just want to make it clear too that I am always in favor of bringing things in front of the town. I just feel like the process should be, you know, when you mentioned CPC, Peter, you know, when that process was done, CPC spoke to the Finance Committee, spoke to the town administrator, spoke to the board, and I would like to give residents of the town as well as the committee the opportunity to, you know, vet this properly. And I just think it's a short timeline, and it's better done if we have the time. And I'm, like I said, I'm a big believer in communicating directly with the committee that it's going to affect before we make a change. And that's just how I like to do things.
Okay. All right.
So I just want to agree with that, and also, I guess, say that if we wouldn't be necessarily surprising them, if we were to have some additional discussions, I think they'd have the opportunity to make the adjustments that they need because we would have already had that discussion, I think, so they could do their planning. I'd like for Doreen to feel more comfortable, I guess, with putting it on the warrant, and I just
Thank you.
support, people feeling like they've done enough to have a strong opinion on it one way or another. So, for me, I'd be in favor of waiting.
So CPC doesn't have another meeting until after town meeting. So, bringing it before CPC is a great idea. But I'm also thinking that we put it on the warrant and we pass over it if CPC doesn't get back to us within the time frame before town meeting. And,
Which is another option. CPC is actually meeting next week
Oh,
to
they are?
discuss this.
oh, they are.
Yeah,
Oh.
which is why I was kind of
Well, see,
surprised to
I
hear
mean-
that they didn't get back to you, but they do have a meeting posted
I'd be
to
in
discuss.
I'd be in favor of putting it on the warrant and then passing over if it's an issue.
All right, any other comments and questions on the board?
So how does the rest of the board feel about Peter's suggestion of just dropping the select board member and having it just change to a Veterans Affairs Committee designee and 3 members at large?
I don't have a problem with that.
I like it for May.
Yeah, I would support that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Article 23, just so we're clear, the board's in favor of just changing one of the at-large members to Veterans Affairs Committee's appointment and designation, and 3 at-large members from the select board?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, and is there any language in here that would say that this bylaw would go in effect for FY 22's appointments? Is there a mechanism in here that we would need as part of the motion?
So it's a general
Yeah,
bylaw?
it's a general bylaw. It goes, as soon as you
goes
vote
in-
on it, it's done.
Yep. It's immediate. So, however, you have people with terms, so I would think that you would enact this, and then as the terms come up is when you would
Right.
make your changes. I don't think the people don't vote this and then you'd boot somebody.
No, yeah, I'm
would-
not
it
in
would
favor
be-
of that.
Part of your next process.
Does the board wanna, do the board need a motion for all this, or is it okay?
Is he on CPC?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so he should, Richard Whitney, if you're watching this discussion, you should log into Zoom to talk to us. I can't answer my cell phone during a board meeting to have this discussion, unfortunately.
Do you want me to answer it?
All right, let's,
See you, but I can't answer you.
so does the board wanna take official action on Article 23 tonight for
We have to.
October town meeting?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So I make a motion that we add Article 23 to the 2021 Fall Town Meeting warrant as amended during discussion.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion on the motion? Noted the comments from the other board members. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, I declare the motion carried 4-1. All right, thank
I
you.
never nay, I forgot what to say.
The next one we have with us was a request to see if the board would consider a town meeting warrant article to rescind the tax increment financing agreement with UPS for 105 Westboro Road, which is Article 25. Does any of the board members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, do you want to do 24 first?
I was just going in order what's on the agenda.
Got it.
My
Okay.
bad.
I just wanted to make sure we don't forget to come
We're
back
not,
to
I
20.
got that. Yep.
William chastises me
So,
every time we
Mr.
do
Chair,
Yeah.
I skip a number.
before we move on, we do have Mr. Spinney here from the Housing Trust, Housing Authority. If we want to, and I think he's on a bit of a schedule. So if the board wants to hear about that placeholder and kind of where he's at in the process of getting some language to us.
It is about the town warrant. Does anyone have any objection to holding off on TIF and clerk appointment and hearing Mr. Spinney and about
Yeah.
where affordable housing is.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Spinney, do you want to have a seat and come on up and?
Caught me on the fly. I just was getting another. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce Bay, 71 Powder Hill Road. Not that you need to know my other business, but I was picking up my son from Scouts, so I was just texting somebody to get him a ride home. So just let me finish 2 seconds. It's like almost done,
No problem.
and it's done.
Wasn't even 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to tell us that. You could have just finished. We wouldn't have even.
Well, yeah, but I was like back there.
No, we would have started pointing at you.
So Bruce, we're closing the town meeting warrant tonight, and my question to you is, do we have any warrant language?
So the and this is completely my fault. I had kind of skipped a week, so I'm actually meeting with council tomorrow for us to draft the motion and the article. The article, of course, is simple. It's retracting the language that is attached to the deed now. The motion is a little bit more complicated to make sure we have everything from a legal perspective done. So when we record it, because it's technically not town property anymore, so there's a couple issues that we need to resolve. I kind of messed up the timing and wasn't aware that it was closing tonight, so I actually have the meeting tomorrow. So if there's any way to preserve the spot, that would be great. If not, then I gotta go back to the trust and tell them that I messed up, which is fine. But I'm not sure what you need in there now as a placeholder.
You need the base of the article, and you don't need numbers or anything like that, but you do need a base to put it as a placeholder.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do.
So if I were to write something down in simple language, would that be sufficient for this evening?
Can I answer that?
Please.
So it would be sufficient as long as it was approved by council. So if it's not approved by, under council review or the moderator's review, then it could get thrown out.
Okay.
Because of improper language or something like that.
Okay. So I'm assuming the language will be sufficient. That I just kind of married the motion and the article together tomorrow in our conversation, just to kind of put everything together. Okay. Is there time for me to give our council a call? I assume she'll still answer me at this time of night.
I would say, Mr. Spinney, you did come in and talk to us a few weeks ago and said that this was something that you're intended to do, and we said that, yes, we would put a placeholder on. If the board wants to grant that indulgence, if you can get something typed to us, in the next 20, 30 minutes, before we have to close the town meeting warrant, because we're getting through our agenda tonight pretty quickly now.
That's fine.
I'm just gonna say, post haste if you need to get it done.
Sure. Let me
Bruce,
step out
is
for
it
a minute.
possible for you to get, to use the old warrant article and then amend that?
Well, no,
Because,
because
you don't want all that information back in there, but I didn't know if it was easy.
no, essentially what the article was just a retraction of the previous article, and so that article was named. How we name it in the actual motion is what we were discussing tomorrow. So the article is just a retraction of most of the article that was on the previous town meeting. The intricacy is that article also conveyed.
Yes, right.
So it conveyed and also restricted, but if you look at the deed just attaches it as an actual article itself. It's not recorded on the deed that these restrictions are in place. So in a typical easement situation or things of that nature, you would have language that's recorded on its own on the deed. This is just basically, it's attached to the end of the deed, so when you pull it up in county records, it's there.
Is this
So-
something you need before May?
I would say we certainly wanted to do it, this in the fall.
I just hate to see it done wrong.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
but the problem is that this is a blocker for that project completely. It's just,
Oh, okay.
the project can't move forward until.
Yeah, there's very little we can do with it, as I explained in the other meeting.
Wait, you want to call council and we'll
Yeah, give
have
me
some discussions?
give me
on
10 minutes. I'll
the-
give a
okay.
call, and I might have, if I dig through my emails in preparation for tomorrow, There are some materials, so if she sent me something, I'll dig it out on my phone and I'll try to get it printed and get it over to you. If not, I'll report back to you in about 10 minutes. If you don't mind, I'll step
You
out.
can, you
Thanks.
could also just email it to me, Bruce.
Okay, that might work as well.
I didn't require anybody else to submit it in writing. We do accept them via email, so I think that that's reasonable.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, I overlapped things from our last meeting, and I figured the placeholder was good until we got to everything aligned. But that's fine. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll step out.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for that update. Okay, thank you for that. I would like to move back to, the TIF agreement with UPS, Article 25, and we'll go to Article, 24 after that one, just in order of what's on the agenda tonight. So, anyone have any questions or comments about wanting to support, the tax increment financing agreement between the town of Grafton and UPS?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
So everybody knows that I support this because I'm the one that brought it up. And I just think that, just like Nature's Remedy, we have deals that are hanging out there. And UPS has no plans to do any, they have no plans for anything. So I just think that what we do is we rescind this, then we revisit it when either they do something or they sell the property to somebody else, and then we revisit it. It's not like we're telling UPS to go pound sand. We're just saying, if you're not gonna do anything, then we'll just take this back and then we'll renegotiate it when time comes. That's all. That's all.
Any questions from the board?
So, Mr. Chair, yeah, just I guess a few thoughts on that. I don't see the TIF as similar to a host agreement.
No, it's not.
In the sense that.
I was using that as an example,
Yeah,
that's all.
okay. Because with the host agreements, we have a specific number.
Yep.
And so that makes them very different in terms of, kind of hanging out there, because it's taking up a kind of a placeholder. For me, I am not completely confident that this is done like dead in the water with UPS, because I just don't have any information that would tell me that. And my concern, I guess, would be if we pull this, and they decide to move forward with it, that's just another obstacle for them to potentially run into. And with this kind of potential, revenue to the town, I want to reduce as much friction as possible, I guess. So I don't see any disbenefit to the town to letting it hang out there for myself.
Well, I mean, the agreement it is a 15-year agreement. In the first year, after they're 100% complete and operational, they pay no taxes for a full year. And then it just goes from there. So the best tax incentive that you can negotiate with a company is never free, okay? Never free at the beginning. So it may be 50%, it may be, you go down and you actually raise your percentages once you get past year 5. So you get up to year 5 and you're at, let's just say 20%. And you go into year 6 and you say 25%. 25% goes from 6 to 10, and then 28% goes from 10 to 15. Because the town the taxes keep growing and growing and growing, and you're actually giving the benefit when you are receiving more money. So the town's not on a losing. So we start off in this situation losing for the first year, and then losing for the next. Well, I say losing. We're gonna gain, but we're not gonna gain a whole lot. We're really not gonna make any money until year 10. So I'm just looking at this, and I didn't bring this up before, but I'm looking at this and I'm just saying, I got word from their attorney that they have no plans at all right now to do anything with this piece of property. So
I got one question.
I just
I just
wanted
want
to
to
go
clarify one thing. When you said, Ray, you said something about we collect 0% tax on the first year, but
Yes.
we're already collecting tax on the property.
Oh, no,
We're
no,
just-
you have the property we collect tax on.
Correct.
I'm talking about the building, the trucks,
The improvements.
the operations, yes.
Right.
Because that's where your money is.
Yeah,
That's where your money
the improvements. I just want,
Yeah,
you know, everyone to know that, you know, there is revenue coming in from
Absolutely.
that property. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I know you're saying that you received word from their attorney that they don't have any plans going forward, but the board did not receive that. And I
No.
would feel more comfortable if they came in and talked to us, as well as, is there any, you know, language in it? Is this the proper way to do this? Is there language in the TIF on how we should be procedurally doing this instead of this way?
So Evan and I tried to get them to come in. And they did not.
That's the email that.
Right, I
Yeah.
saw that, yeah.
We,
but-
we tried to get them, the goal was to talk with them and get them in here and talk about their project. And
But-
nothing, crickets.
I guess I would say, in the emails I saw, there was no mention of this was our plan. And
No,
I
not
don't
at
know
all.
if that would change crickets to sit up and take notice. They're looking to do something. I do want to get in there. I mean, the emails I saw was like, hey, let's set up a meeting. Hey, let's set up a meeting. And, you know, and we're boiling it down to they're never coming here. I don't feel comfortable based on just those emails to say, let's pull this trigger yet. But I do think it's something worth looking into a little further. I just don't know if this is the right way to do it.
Evan, you wanted to say something. You wanted to
If Doreen wants to go first, you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with that. You know, from what I read in the email, it was you know, one line from an attorney that I don't know and haven't had conversation with, and it's sort of a big decision to make based on that. And the second thing is, you know, it just like the last article, I am a believer in process, and I want to know, and I think Evan's about to answer this question, what does the contract say? It's really it. Like, what happens when something like this happens? And we should follow the town process and not just, in my opinion, and not just,
Well, if there's a contract that states that this is in place and this can go on forever and ever, amen, then that was another bad deal.
Evan, did you wanted to say a couple?
There is language in the TIF
okay.
that talks about if the company fails to meet the obligations specified in sections 1, 2, 3, or 4 or above. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are job creation, percentage of hires from Grafton and Shrewsbury, company constructing the 800,000 square foot distribution facility, and investing an estimated 180 million for the project for soft and hard construction costs. And so what this provision tells us is that by acting through its board of selectmen, which is what it was at the time, may take action to notify the EACC. EACC, and I pulled it up because I could never remember this acronym, is the Economic Assistance Coordinating Council. That's where you file your TIF.
State agency.
Yep, with the state, correct, right? Yep, thank you. So prior to taking any action to request decertification of the project by the ACC, the town shall give written notice of the alleged default to the company and provide an opportunity to meet with town officials to discuss a remedy to the alleged default. The company shall have 30 days from the receipt of such written notice to respond to the town by regarding any alleged default, and it goes on and on with other legalese, but that's essentially what this TIF lays out. So we did, for a good portion of the week, go back and forth with town council on that, and her advice is to enact that clause rather than try to decertify at town meeting.
Yep.
As a first step.
I guess you're right, because if you enact it at town, you know, if you go back and take it back for town meeting, you can't enact any discussion or clause. They start back from zero. So it really doesn't incentivize a discussion at all. I think it's more of an adversarial way of going about it, but I know that you may have to do that at some point.
Right.
Right.
But I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I don't feel after what you said there, I didn't realize those clauses were there until you mentioned it. Looking at going down that road first, if we don't get anywhere and it goes nowhere, then we take the next step.
Yeah, and I do want to just mention, I mean, it took us quite a bit of time to even locate the TIF. So, I don't want to, yeah, I hate coming to a meeting, you know, Ray presented this, I don't want to come to the meeting and go, guess what we found? We literally dug this out about an hour ago, after back and forth with council for a week.
So our council didn't have a copy of this?
Nope.
Okay.
So that's a whole different discussion, I think, for another day, but
Yeah.
it was
It is.
just to get to that was a lot of work, and I just don't want it to feel like we dump it on you last minute. We really tried to get this information together in a timely manner, and it just didn't exist anywhere.
I didn't want to say, you know, make it sound like, you know, I trust that you guys are aligning and getting all this information. I understand probably finding it, people store it somewhere in a real obscure place, so I get that. Looking for that sort of thing can take time. I wasn't trying, I
No,
wasn't being
and-
critical of you or like.
Oh no, and it wasn't in response to anything you said. I just
okay,
wanted,
okay,
in general, I hate
yeah.
to come to the meeting and be like, well, Evan has information on that, and then I just dump all this stuff that could have just been sent in an email, and it would have cleared all this up we would have discussed at this meeting, and
Right.
blah blah blah. Just time didn't work out for us
Okay.
in this particular case.
So let me ask this, in light of this information, does the board still have any, I mean, Ray, do you still have a reason to go forward with Article 25?
No, I'll wait till May.
Okay.
I really wanted to bring this to the board's attention
Mhm.
and to the town's attention, that we have a deal out there for UPS, and it would be great to have them come in and do things. But if you're not gonna do things, and this is my opinion, again, if we're gonna give permits, and we're gonna give TIFs, and we're gonna give authorizations for companies to do business, they're gonna give us a schedule of when they're gonna be done. When they're gonna start, when they're gonna be done. They just hang out there, they're no good to us, so, yeah, I'll wait till May.
I have one more follow-up question. What is, this is for Ray, do you know what the, opinion or role of the EDC and TIF committee is with this? Is this something that,
I brought it up to EDC,
yeah,
at the last meeting, and, it wasn't, well received, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think some of the members of the EDC were more concerned about upsetting UPS. And I'm not. I'm not. This is business. And either you're gonna do business or we move on. And that's how I look at things. So, yeah, they were not totally in favor of it
okay,
at all.
okay.
They said, as a matter of fact, one comment was, this is a Fortune 500 company, we can't tell them what to do. Well, yes, we can. So, that's all.
Well, it's nice we now have the tip and we have some language and we can start drilling down on that, you know, after town meeting, which should be good.
Okay. All right. So the board will pass over Article 25 and remove it from the warrant prior to signature. Do we need a motion for that?
No, because you're gonna vote to close the warrant,
Okay.
and so it'll just,
It just won't be on there.
it's
Okay.
be on there, yeah, it's
Or is 25 now affordable housing?
when the chair gets to that part, we'll
When I get to that.
discuss it. Come on,
So
Colleen.
sorry.
Jeez.
I just,
That's what I went over to Evan to talk about for a second ago. I was
we're
like,
gonna
I
slam
just-
Colleen, watch, she's gonna go right into this.
No.
That's what I said. I said, let's set this trap.
They're like, listen, VP, simmer down.
Yep, that can't.
Colleen, I didn't have anything to do with it.
No, I know. You're all the way down
He doesn't
there.
have anything to
I
do with it
understand.
yet.
Yes.
All right.
I'm still upset over the low-calorie frozen butter.
I know. It's how you take the calories. You just freeze it. What? Sorry, that was a lie. That's not how that works.
Makes me feel better now. All right, good enough. Let's go back and let's talk about the town clerk appointment. So this was brought at our last meeting to see about making a change to the town charter through special legislation. Colleen, did you want to go over this?
Yeah, so I brought this up because this is a trend happening in a lot of communities around Massachusetts where this elected position is transitioning to an appointed position because the position has just changed drastically over even just the last 10 years. It's become far more technical, and you know, as we've just seen in the news how important this role is. And I reached out to another community that has it on their fall warrant, and this is that information I provided to you guys last week, and it kind of breaks down the pros and cons of elected versus appointed positions, and I feel strongly that an appointed position for the town clerk in Grafton just puts Grafton in a better position. It has accountability built in. It opens it up to a bigger pool of candidates besides just Grafton residents. It guarantees qualifications for this position, which a campaign does not. It does not guarantee any kind of qualifications. There's accountability baked in where, you know, a recall election or just not re-electing somebody is not the same kind of accountability as an appointed position would have. There's performance incentives, and I actually talked to an elected town clerk in Groton today who's advocating for this in his own town. Now, he's an elected town clerk, and he's advocating for it to be switched to appointed in his town as well because he just sees the merit in it. So the reason I thought it was important to do it at fall right now is because if the town agrees, it will transition nicely, hopefully, to the spring where our current town clerk's term is ending. So in the spring, the current town clerk will have to do one of two things either way. She's either going to choose to run again or sit through an interview process. And I just thought it just seemed nice and tidy to have it all end around the same time rather than disruptive during a term or something like that.
Anyone have any questions?
I know that didn't sit well the last time this was brought up. And to be honest with you, I'm not in favor of it. I think it should be an elected position. I think it should be a local person, and I think when you walk into the town clerk's office, you should, not saying that employees are not happy and smiley, but it's nice to see a local face.
So in preparation for that, I rewatched that 2017 town meeting, and I just don't think it was that level of education was really there as to why it was being advocated to in the first place. And one person stood up and spoke out against it, and that was it. The vote wasn't crazy overwhelming either. It just didn't pass. I think with the proper amount of support, it could pass.
Doreen?
So, thank you for bringing this up again, because I feel like it's, again, another important issue that should be brought in front of the voters. And I was interested in your time frame because I wasn't sure if this was election season for the town clerk, which makes sense, you know. And I'm actually opposite of Ray, where I'm personally in favor of an appointed town clerk, merely based on credentials, which I think our current elected town clerk has. But it's, you know, you could have anybody run, and if it's popular, they could be in a position, and it's become, over the past few decades, more and more of a complicated position. That being said, I'm going to go back to the same thing I said about CPC. Has anyone talked to our town clerk or our assistant town clerk about how they feel about this?
That's why I reached out to the town clerk in another community, because I didn't want to put our town clerk in an awkward position talking about it, making them feel that they needed to respond any kind of a way. So for me personally, I just felt like it could potentially put that person in an awkward position, but I did think it was important, so I reached out to another community that's doing the exact same thing, where the position's elected and they're strongly advocating for it to be switched to appointed.
So the only reservation I have with this is that if I was in Candy's seat, I would be really mad that this was going on the town meeting warrant and it affected my job and I didn't know about it.
Well, that's why I put it the way I did. First of all, I don't want to. It's the position, not the person. You know what I mean? So we're talking about the town clerk, not necessarily the person, because the person's lovely. I think we all can agree with that. And that position has to make a choice in the spring regardless.
That's
so whether
it,
they run
yeah.
a campaign or they sit for an interview, they're doing something.
Exactly.
So I think Grafton benefits through the interview process rather than the campaign process, because, you know what I mean? Not a lot of people want to run a campaign, but sitting down for an interview is very customary. People are used to that process. So I think it helps guarantee the qualifications that, you know, we all know current town clerk has. So an interview process is probably a lot easier than a campaign. I got to be honest.
Well, yeah.
So,
From-
I
from-
mean-
from those of us who have interviewed for positions and campaigned, I would say that is very true.
Right. So I mean, I know you're assuming she might be upset, but she might be pumped.
She-
Like,
yeah.
oh, I don't want a campaign.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'd love to hear other people's opinions.
Any other questions from the board, comments?
From my standpoint, I think there's a lot of benefits to making this an appointed position. You know, insisting on certain qualifications for the position is a really important one. I feel like, you know, one of the things that this board has been all about is collaboration and, you know, teamwork and, you know, that right now the clerk is sort of a little bit disconnected from the rest of the municipal center. You know, they are accountable to voters in the way that we all are, but beyond that level of accountability, I don't know, and Evan, I'd like to get your opinion on this, though.
I knew that was coming.
Just from, you know, from a kind of teamwork standpoint, do you think there would be some benefit to bringing the clerk's office in and having them, you know, attend staff meetings? And I don't know the day-to-day reality of the interaction between the clerk's office and the rest of the, you know, the rest of the municipal center, but I definitely see some significant benefit from that, from goal setting, from, you know, having the town administrator have a conversation about salary versus town meeting. Like, there's just, I don't know, this analysis is very good. I see a lot of potential benefits to it.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the position and not the person, I think there's great benefit to making it an appointed position. I've always felt that way as a TA. Gets everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yep.
You have a lot less risk of having the wrong person in that position, and you can bank on being able to get people with the correct credentials in place that meets the culture of your organization.
Right.
With our current arrangement, I don't see the day-to-day changing very much. The current clerk attends all the staff meetings, does the reading with the department heads. So functionally, with the person we have in the position right now, I don't see a great change in the way
Got it.
that operates.
But it may not always work like that.
That correct.
I
Yep.
mean, and that's the thing that we're really talking, you know, when we talk about the position.
Right, and that's what I'm
Makes
getting at.
sense.
Is currently I don't have any issues. Things, you know, Candy comes to see me quite often and bounce ideas off me, and we go back and forth. We're right now setting up kids voting in town hall and, you know, stuff like that. It you know, that's pretty effortless. You know, 5-10 years from now, what does that look like? I don't know.
Right.
And I am generally in favor of them becoming an appointed position.
Okay. I was also interested in the timing, and that actually makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, I'm gonna support putting it on the warrant, as I'm going to the town and seeing if that's something that they want to move forward with. I do think there is gonna have to be a little bit of, you know, like you said, public education on the benefits, but as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it is pretty well captured here, and it's pretty. It's a pretty neutral analysis, I guess, of the impacts. So I thought it was quite good.
Yeah, I'm gonna support it too. Again, my only reservation is not communicating to Candy, but I could have done that as well. And you know, you make the point that she's gonna either have to run an election or go through an interview. So I feel like for the town that this is the right thing to do.
But
So, well,
I wanted to ask a question.
oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So my only issue with this warrant language is going for special legislation, right? And the timing of special legislation. We had some special legislation that was just recently submitted to town meeting, and it yet has not been acted at the state legislative level. It's in the Senate. It's been sitting in the Senate now for several months, going nowhere quickly. Hasn't even reached Governor Baker's desk, and that was for the appointment authority for Finance Committee. So my question is, We vote on this. Say the town's in favor of the special legislation. They don't get to enacting it for another year. Now, what kind of a conundrum does this put us into? My suggestion would be if the board were to consider this warrant article, that you remove the special legislation and just go to, a formal charter amendment process, which would go at town meeting here and then go to the ballot to the people, and then it's either voted up or down by the people, not by special legislation. I don't know what everyone thinks about that.
Well, that cuts down the time process,
Very likely.
So here's my view. I'm not in favor of this. And the only way that I would be in favor of this is if Candy was guaranteed the job. And I do not want her, with the time and effort that she has put into this town clerk's position and the good job that she has done through some very, very trying times, that she would not be guaranteed this job when it changed. So that's the only way that I would support it.
Ray, can I just comment on that? I feel the same way, but we also are not responsible for the election. And so I feel like either place, her job is going to either be campaigned or interviewed in May. And
Yep.
so there's no guarantee of that from us, even if this warrant goes out.
The other concern I would have doing it that way is if it goes on the ballot the same time the town clerk position is up, that means that person could potentially be campaigning. If they win an election and the voters say make it appointed, what happens in that situation?
The position's eliminated.
In favor of an appointment.
Yeah.
That would be a bummer to have to do both the campaign and an interview.
So
I guess you're in the same boat with special legislation, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is forgive me for saying this, but this is kind of the problem with doing this a week out from
Fair enough.
setting the warrant. The law does set out a process by which it's chapter 41, section 1B, whereby you can vote at town meeting to put something on the ballot, right? Not a charter amendment, but just that shall the town vote to have its elected blank become an appointed blank of the town, yes or no. So you put the question on town meeting to see if the town will vote to add this to the next ballot. Then this goes on the ballot, and then that change is made. That's one way that you can change your elected to appointed positions without having to enact special legislation that we don't have any control over the timeline of. So any incumbent of such office or board serving at the time of acceptance by the voters shall continue to hold said office and to perform the duties thereof until expiration of the term for which said individual is elected, or until said individual otherwise vacates such office, provided, however, that any individual elected to an office or board, which becomes an appointed office, at the same election under the provisions of this section, shall hold said office and perform the duties thereof until the appointment of said office is otherwise made under the provisions of this section.
So they would keep their
Perfectly
position.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
I'm
that.
getting a little motion sick there.
Such appointment shall be made by the Board of Selectmen for a term not to exceed 3 years unless such mode of appointment or term is otherwise provided by law.
That's an appointment by the select board, but not the TA.
Under it 41(1)B, but you also have a charter that supersedes some of the MGL because it's been adopted. So it's complicated, and I don't have all the answers for you.
Yeah.
I'm good at Googling, and I got this law really quick, and I did do this in my previous community under this provision. But I don't know how that interacts with the charter, and I don't have that answer for you today.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? All right. Seeing how you can hear a pin drop with that silence.
Want me to read that again?
Please spare me.
You lost me halfway
We're
through.
gonna lose all our.
I lost my place
I
twice. I
would,
only read you a quarter of the language. 'cause-
I would ask the board how does it feel about going forward with Article 24 as presented for October town meeting? I'll ask that in light of what Mr. Brassard just said.
So, for me, after discussion, I'm completely in support of this change, but we need to make sure that we have the right process in place. So, I think we should park this and set it up correctly and then do it.
All right, how does anyone else feel?
I agree with that.
Colleen, Doreen, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so I just want to know what happens in the meantime. So what does that process look like? So our Candy would go through another election. It would be brought up in May or the following, next October?
So,
And what would that look like once the campaign is run?
I actually know the answer to this because it is a
Okay.
charter amendment, okay? If you have this article in May,
Uh-huh.
it won't go on the ballot until the following annual town election.
Okay.
Or, yeah, it's gotta be an annual town election, it can't be a special. So, with that, it would delay another year, you know, Ms. LaValle, upon successful reelection of her office, would maintain such position, and then maintain such position in accordance with that law until the term expires. So regardless of when we do this, or how it gets done, Ms. LaValle would be most likely, you know, going for reelection if that's her intention, and, you know, favorably to win. In my opinion, she stays there until such time this all hashes out. In my opinion, waiting for May or doing it now is kind of six of one, half dozen the other.
Okay.
But I think that waiting and doing it right and making sure we've got the right process and the town knows
Yeah.
everything about that process is fair. I just worry about the special legislation component taking a year and a half. And then, you know, it could be delayed, but they couldn't enact it either. They could just say, no, we're not interested. They could say that.
So the way you just read that, all it would do is just change the language on it, saying, hey, and show the ballot question. Are you in favor of putting this on the ballot in the spring? Yes or no?
Yep, so and the law gives you that, so it's, again, no, this is the easy part.
Please.
Shall the town vote to have its elected clerk become an appointed clerk of the town? Yes or no?
Beautiful.
So basically what you're saying is to see if the town will vote to place the following question on the official ballot. And then that question I just read.
Yeah, that seems neat and tidy. I mean, the special legislation is the hang up for people because of the variable on the timing. So this removes that variable. We know the timing. It's either going on the ballot and then or it's not.
Right.
Question for you. In Munson, did you have a town form charter or were you under executive, you're under Mass General Law? So I do believe that in order to make a change to the charter, it has to be done in a way prescribed about what language are you striking and what are you replacing it with, and that's what people need to vote on.
Okay.
So that, I believe, has to be prescriptive exactly. We did it for the Finance Committee.
Yep.
And I believe we would probably have to do it for this one. So, you know, if the board's in favor of keeping it, we have until tonight to kind of come up with the language, which I don't know if it's reasonable.
No, but if you'd like, I just need to do, grab the charter and do a real quick review, and then I can potentially give you an opinion. I'm not up to date on the clerk section of the charter. That's not really my area.
What does the board wish to do?
I mean, I don't mind taking a 10-minute recess. Can you do it in 10 minutes?
Sure. Sure. I'm gonna go get my law degree while I'm out there. No
Awesome.
problem.
We have Mr. Spinney here anyway. We can
You
get back to.
Let's circle back.
Yeah.
you want me to go do that and then?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Evan.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, why don't we'll table the town clerk appointment until Mr. Brassard's return. And at this point, we can invite Mr. Spinney back to the meeting here. I believe, William, you have a copy of
Yep.
warrant article language. Or, sir, could you put it up on the screen for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ray, did Evan send, well, did he send it to you? So did you take a peek at this, or this is the first time you're seeing it?
No, first time I've seen it.
All right. And on behalf of the trust, I do appreciate extending me this courtesy. And just a disclaimer, this was my thing to take care of, and I did not align the time efficiently. So I apologize, and I just want to make sure it doesn't reflect poorly on my other trust members.
All right. To see if the town will vote to remove the restrictions placed on 25 Worcester Street, Grafton, Massachusetts, for the purpose of constructing senior age 55 and over affordable housing by town meeting and Article 41 on June 20, 2020. Okay, any
That's
other
good.
vote? Okay, so basically this warrant article is striking that part of the warrant article in the language.
Right, but in extension to that, how it gets actually recorded, this will be following the previous article that's attached to the deed. Because that's where our dilemma is how do we, remedy what's not actually on the deed through a normal process, and you can only do it at town meeting. So there's a whole bunch of different strings that gets pulled. This puts it in the right general direction as far as an article is considered. The motion might have a more elaborate process by which the town has to record. So once this goes behind the current article that is attached to the deed, that should alleviate the restrictions that are in the previous deed. And that's the assumption we're running under. We kind of confirm that's the best approach for us. But how we structure the motion is what we're discussing tomorrow with our council.
Can I just ask you, Bruce, the Article 41, did that related to the transfer of the property also, correct? Okay. So you're all set.
In a perfect world, we would have, it was a citizen's petition, so who knows, it could have been multiple articles. And then we could just have struck the article that, talked about the actual restriction. Instead, this was kind of all put into one. And it was a citizen's petition, so there was really not much review on the town side of it as far as,
So
a logical approach.
let me be devil's advocate here a little bit. The town doesn't own the property. So how can the town vote to remove the restriction?
Because it's just it's like we would accept a roadway, like we would, put an easement on a particular property. All those rules apply.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
So the original restriction is on behalf of the town, who is recorded like we put a sewer easement across somebody's property or a retention basin or something like that. It's a little bit more prescriptive in what we can do to alleviate those things. This is kind of its own special thing. So the idea and the thought process behind it was correct. The town voted overwhelmingly for it. We're going to go back and say, this are the things that we need to adjust to make it actually worthwhile for what we're trying to get accomplished on the site. And they can say yes or no. So, but there's no other way to go around it. So.
And this was just approved by council too? Or
No,
you're doing that
so
tomorrow?
that's what we're going to discuss
Okay.
tomorrow. This is the basics for it. I mean, it's the article, so the motion needs to be very accurate into what we need to do with the results of it, so to speak.
And
or
if
what
you need
the
to
town-
change it, you can amend it on the floor. So.
Okay. That was really
Right, 'cause
my
it's-
reasoning to make sure that it.
My follow through was I should have provided you with the article tonight, and then I wouldn't even have to be here, and then we could kind of, as long as it was within the field of play, so to speak. So I kind of lumped them all together and came here a couple weeks ago to let you know that it was coming. So,
Okay.
but if this is efficient, this will work, and this is what the trust wants to do. So,
Any questions from the board?
I just have one more question. Will the trust vote on this tomorrow?
and-
Or does it make a difference, right? Because it's on.
no,
Okay.
we already voted to do this. The modus operandi to actually get it accomplished was kind of put on me to do.
Okay,
So.
understood.
Any questions? All right, any objections to putting this on the warrant as is for now? And then there might be some administrative, changes based on legal counsel's review of the article? Am I accurate in that? Is it? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I'd like to hear what Mr.
I'm just trying to see, make sure we're
Okay.
on first. I did
Great.
see. Ron-
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. If there isn't any other questions on the board, did you want to come on up?
Do you need me up there for this? You want me to stay, just in case it's directly me?
Sure. That's fine, Bruce.
Ron Warwick, 32 Worcester Street. Could you tell us what does it mean if this passes, and what does it mean if it fails?
This is certainly something that would be prepared for at actual town meeting itself, but if you want to grant the indulgence, I can respond to it here.
Well, I would think the board would like to know that. I shouldn't speak for you. But
Well, I should say that this is
I'm going to say something real quick. Personally, me, Mr. Warwick, I know what this article is doing and what it means, but if the rest of the board would like to hear the answer from Mr. Spinney,
Yeah, players at home might want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
I want to preface that by saying I'm now speaking on behalf of the trust, which I don't have the authority to do on our game plan for how we're going to present. I will say that we're a body of town, and it's appropriate for us to put an article in this way. This is the trust's article, not the select board's article. I was remiss in not providing you with the article material, but I provided it, and it's going on the warrant. It's really not up to the select board to do that. That being said, what this would do is it would allow us to broaden our concept approach for what we want to do with the property, and provide us with a lot of opportunity to adjust how it looks, and what we actually want to get accomplished there. So, and actually get to the development stage. So, I'm not sure if you were here in the last time I spoke a little bit about this. The restriction that's placed on here, and part of our mission on the trust, is to build affordable housing. We also want to make sure that we're getting credit for it on SHI, which is, not all of our charge, but it's certainly something that we should be cognizant of, and it's certainly something that's advantageous to the town that we keep in our pocket. There are other projects that we're working on that are more critical, I believe, right now, that the trust is assisting in. But there's no need not to have this particular parcel in play. And this will let us go back to the drawing table and come up with a lot more efficient designs and a lot more broader approach to what we can actually get accomplished there, which is also a benefit to the neighborhood too, because we can kind of marry this with other projects and throw it into a much broader plan for the town. Now that we have Pine Street that's actually under construction, and then the Upton Street project, which is coming to fruition. So there are other things that we can do to kind of blend into this, especially when we have developers that are working in town that are attracted to town. So it's a good opportunity for us to be able to kind of work with this in what I think is the true intent.
what does it mean if it fails?
If it fails, it stays on there, and I guess we're gonna have to come up with some other plan with it, or sit on it, or, I mean, there's other avenues we could take to remediate the article. I don't think they're very pleasant, and they'd be adversarial with the town. So I think this is a good way to do it. And at least we can explain, our concept and what we're, the overall approach that we're taking to the parcels that are in our portfolio.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It's actually the same thing that happened on Upton Street, so.
Yeah, well,
They're not doing over 55 either, so.
Right.
so in that particular case, they're going through a planning board process, which is, much different than the process we would take here in 25 Worcester Street. But that being said, we're in a good position, especially with this under our umbrella, to actually negotiate with GSX, which is what we have been doing thus far, to get them from that 10% to the 25% mark, which would have a massive impact on affordability in town. So it turns that project into a superstar project as far as affordable homes in town are concerned, both from an SHI standpoint and their apartments, and there'd be almost 40 units that would be affordable, which is a boom for the town on a whole bunch of different levels. This puts something that allows us to align our strategy with that approach too. So it gives us more, leverage is a bad word for it, but it gives us more ability to negotiate and work. So these are the messages we'll also convey at town meeting too. So I appreciate this. This is was very kind of you to let me correct a mistake, and we'll see you at town meeting.
Thank you.
Unless you
Thank
need
you.
anything more, Mr. Chair.
I don't. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and doing that. Sorry that you ran into those problems, but you know, like everything else, life gets in the way, Bruce. So
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on. So as long as we get there. Thank you very much.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming out. Appreciate it. Okay. So coming back to town clerk appointment, I took a few minutes and just met with Mr. Brassard and talked about structure would need to happen. So to do the charter amendment, we would have to eliminate under the elected position 3-5, which talks specifically in the town charter about the elected position. And then under not administrative, but under
Town administrator.
not under town administrator, administrative organization on 5, you would create a new section like we did a few years back with the Board of Sewer Commissioners when they were never included. It would just go right after that, and you would create section 5-7, town clerk. Instead of a composition term of office, it just you're going to say, you know, this is appointed by the town administrator for a term of, I don't know, 3 years. And then you would put the powers and duties of the town clerk like it is in the charter under that provision as well. So that would be the structure in which to accommodate that change. If the board is okay with that, do you need me to have them put up anything real quick to see verbally what that would look like?
No.
No?
I like that book, though. I would like one of those.
No.
Christmas is coming.
It's my,
Christmas.
it's my
I
nightmare.
saw that.
Calling with a paper version of the charter.
I have one that's signed by the original. Would you like one of those? I have actually 2 copies.
Is it like
I'd
up
like
to
to
date
see it.
though?
No,
That
it's
is
the
nice.
original signed version from '86. It's got like
Oh,
Jim's
jeez.
name in it and all those.
No, I'd
Oh.
like to see it.
Oh, you wanna see it up on the
Yes,
thing?
Yeah.
Sure, that's not a terrible pain.
Sorry, Evan.
No, I'm just kidding.
Do you
I
want the
like
charter
how
up
you just
or?
look to the left though.
Well, because he's the only one
Yeah,
connected to
you
this
thought it would be
thing.
an
Yeah.
early night.
Do you have the charter up?
It's right here.
Okay, so if you could go to section
We still have a good
3-5.
night, so.
Well, remember how you said you wanted to be a town administrator? This
Still
is
do.
exactly why you don't do it.
Still do.
It'll change.
I want to work with great people like Mr. Fazio.
I know,
Not on your nose.
really.
He didn't include my name. That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Just me.
So weird.
just a,
Just me. Not even you, Evan.
No, I'm fine with it. Can you make that bigger,
Thanks,
please?
William.
Enhance. Enhance. There you go.
There we go.
That's what my whole day is like.
It really is, isn't it? So you would have a new section 5-7
Okay.
that looks remarkably similar to this. So you would have term of office, and so there should be a town clerk appointed by the town administrator for a term of 3 years. And then powers and duties remain exactly the same. You wouldn't make any changes to that.
Thank you. I'm visual. This is very helpful.
Enhance.
Do we need to see anything else?
I don't know. Does anybody else need to see anything?
You
So
put
with
in
the,
bold,
Would this be? So
It's
we
a
would
PDF,
change-
so I can't bold it.
We would change the article to.
So you'd say to see if the
Jack.
town would vote to see if the town will vote to amend its charter to include the following changes: the deletion of the words town clerk under section 3-1, the deletion of section 3-5 in its entirety, and the inclusion of a new section 5-7, town clerk,
3-7.
as I just
Yep.
discussed.
I'm good with that.
Take a motion.
I could take a motion. Sure.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion so moved, which would make an amendment to the town charter. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, this is to add the language to the warrant.
Correct.
Under Article 24, correct?
So the essence stays the same, the vehicle just changed. Yeah.
Under Article 24.
Thank you so much for doing that, by the way.
That's correct. Okay, any other questions?
Thanks, William.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the
Aye.
motion carried. Oh, sorry. Motion 4-1. Passes. Sorry, Ray.
It's okay.
Okay,
Get it in.
all right, at this point in time,
We done?
I can take a motion to now close the town meeting warrant.
I make a motion, we close the 2021 fall town meeting warrants.
Second.
Motion made at second. Any discussion on the motion?
Is there anything else? Yeah.
I would just urge that the language be to close the town meeting warrant pending any non-substantial changes to letters, numbering or pagination made by town council.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made at second. Any discussion on that motion?
Do we have to rescind the first
I
motion?
think we can just amend.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare motion carried. Okay, we can enter a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.